everyone, I'm Julia Campbell here at JEMS Boutique, and this is Style in Color, an interview series with game changers in business, sport, technology, and culture who advocate for women's empowerment. Today, I have the pleasure of speaking with Sara Roach Lewis. Sara is a business strategist and the host of a radio talk show called Breakthrough. Tune in to hear what she has to say about style and confidence. Thank you for joining me.
Well, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm super pumped that you're here. My first, the first interview of 2020. Very exciting. So let us in on your day to day, the routine.
The routine. Well, I really decided to kind of next level my routine in September. So I always had sort of a morning routine. In September, I decided that I wanted to make some changes, and one of those changes was meditation. So I had learned transcendental meditation when I was a kid. My parents were meditators, and you know, as crazy as that is, in the early 80s in Surrey, we learned to meditate, and so it was something
good for you.
Yeah, it's really
and good for them.
Good for them, right?
For passing that down.
Yeah. So it was always part of my toolkit, but I never really used meditation unless I was really stressed out,
right.
Or, you know, it was like in those times of crisis, I went to it. And so I decided that I really wanted to build that in as a daily practice. And so I went back to the man who taught me to meditate almost 40 years ago.
Wow.
Amazingly, he was in India, and we did it via Zoom.
No way.
Yeah, it was really neat. So I have a great morning routine that I really like. It ebbs and flows a bit because, of course, I have 2 children and a husband. And so generally I get up, I meditate. Whoever gets up first puts on the coffee. Scott and I almost always, depending on whether he's fishing or, you know, things, but we try to have coffee together in the morning.
Nice.
And then, you know, I have a lovely house that I love, and we have this beautiful antique mantle that came out of his grandparents' house that he made a fireplace, like a fireplace insert. So we have this beautiful morning where I turn on the fireplace and I have some lights around the mantle, and I have this journal that I use. It's called a high performance planner. So I've been using it for probably almost the same amount of time, and just gives you some sort of reflective questions in the morning and in the afternoon, in the evening. I do a lot of like, you know, setting my intentions for the day kind of stuff. So it sounds like it's really blissful, but it is.
I was gonna say, it sounds like a retreat.
Well,
you're like, I'm just waking up in my own retreat every morning, which is incredible. And I know it's, you know,
well, it's punctuated
not all roses,
by bonk, bonk, bonk of this kid's alarm, and bonk, bonk. So there, you know, in my morning routine also includes a lot of alarms going off and yelling to get ready for the bus.
Yeah.
But I also tend to try and remind myself that at some point I will miss the insanity that often ensues in the morning. So that's kind of my morning routine. And then generally I try probably at least 3 or 4 days a week to do what I would call a walk and talk. So I am an extrovert, and I really like to process out loud, and I have some friends that I, you know, are really sort of trusted, and we love to chat. And so I will go for a walk in the morning and check in with one of them, and try to do that a few times a week.
Good for you.
That's sort of my morning.
Excellent. And tell us a little bit about your business, your businesses. Yeah.
So I have a training and coaching business called SRL Solutions, and my focus there is on I help women grow their businesses bigger than they imagine possible in less time than they're using right now. So it's really about building out good strategy, creating a plan, and then really the action. And action.
Right.
And so I'm the business partner that often people don't have, that, you know, the person who can kind of look at the business from the outside, see what the strategy is. And then really a lot of what I do is accountability. So my
Which
clients,
is massive.
Yeah,
I mean, it is.
It really
As you
is.
know, like you talk about the action, the accountability for so many people is so important.
Yeah, it really is.
I think it's like human nature.
We all need, you know, it's funny, entrepreneurs go into business for themselves because they want to be their own boss.
Yes.
But we all kind of have a desire for people to tell us what to do.
Yeah,
Or
absolutely.
at least echo back what you decided you wanted to do. And so a big part of what I do is accountability. And you know, the other thing that I spend a lot of time talking to my clients about, I work pretty much exclusively with women, is we are holistic beings. So looking at our lives on the whole, and the fact is we're building businesses. Generally as women, we're building businesses because you know, of the life that we want to create.
Right.
And so wanting to get really careful that we're not building a nightmare for ourselves.
Right.
And that reminder that the reason why we're doing this, you know, what are your reasons for doing this? And so for some people it's so that they can go, you know, to their kids' after school activities, or they're this or they're that, or, you know, whatever your why is, just sort of that reminder of it, and really wanting to help people build businesses that work for their lives, and that reminder that, you know, we are so much more than our businesses.
Love it.
It's good fun.
Yeah, and tell us about Breakthrough.
So Breakthrough is so fun. And you were my second guest. And so
I was, yes.
So appreciate that. So Breakthrough is for ambitious women who want to hit $1 million and beyond in their business. And it features interviews with women who have already achieved that. And so I have a mix of women from PEI. I like to highlight folks from here and also around the world. It was really, there were a couple of inspirations for Breakthrough. One is I love hearing people's stories, and I think that is the idea that we can't be what we can't see, and so unpacking and illuminating some of these important stories.
Yes, that's such a great way of putting it.
Well, it's not my quote. It's Marie Wilson as part of the White House Project, so it was really around women in government and women in politics.
Right.
But it applies to everything. We can't be what we can't see.
Yes, totally.
And the reality is less than 2% of women have achieved, like women-owned businesses, achieve 7 figures or $1 million in revenue in their business in a year. So I believe that gender equality can solve all of the world's problems, and in particular that women's economic prosperity makes a huge difference, not only at the level of people's lives, but we know that when women have more money, they contribute to their wider family, they contribute to their community, they give back. And the other piece to that is, for so long, women's voices haven't been at lots of tables, particularly this table around solving problems and creating businesses. So now we're in a place where we're actually seeing the ability for women to solve the problems that they have in their life. And so there's just, I feel like 2020, the decade of the 20s, is truly the time for women in business, and we're going to see a great flourishing. And circling kind of back to Breakthrough, I feel Breakthrough is motivational, inspirational, and instructional. So big part of the show is really talking to women like you, finding out what that path was like, and see where are those key themes. So I see that there's probably, you know, some analysis of You didn't maybe realize that we were also sort of doing an experiment at the same time.
Sure.
But there is some analysis of those interviews and those experiences, because I believe that right now, if we look at less than 2%, that is, you're a trailblazer, right? So we're blazing the trail, and that's really when you're, going through with the machete and you're trying to like figure out where the path is. But now we have this opportunity, if we really leverage it, to say, actually, we want like not just even like an ATV trail or a snowmobile trail, like what is like the 7-lane highway to 7 figures, and helping women in that you can't be what you can't, like seeing themselves in that,
right,
is, and it's been really an interesting piece around, so I think there's that piece around mindset. I just started doing this 6 months ago, and even if you had asked me 6 months ago, like what's your goal or vision for your business, I would have been like, well, I'd like to. Now I'm like, I can get to 7 figures. Of course it
Absolutely.
really does. I think there's something about those elevated discussions that helps people see themselves in it.
Oh my gosh, that was loaded with so many amazing analogies in there. That was fantastic. I'm gonna love rewatching this and writing some of that down. Sarah, what does style mean to you?
Well, I think it's such a great question. As someone who both has deep feminist roots,
Right.
and I grew up fat, overweight, plus sized, whatever word you're more comfortable with. For much of my life, as much as style was something that I loved, I was the kid in high school who read Vogue and, Elle and Rolling Stone, really. But I didn't see myself in that. That was for other people.
Right.
And a big part of it was real, truly 25 years ago, 30 years ago, there were no plus sized style.
Totally.
The style wasn't there. And so, and as a feminist, and the beauty myth, and sort of going through a long phase of rejecting all kinds of societal norms, that was one that certainly got rejected for a long time. And I think, it's interesting, those were sort of the roots of style. I would say for me is that there wasn't really a place for me in that.
Right.
And over the years that has evolved, and I certainly see style now being more about not only the external reflection of what's internal, but also recognizing that the external, like that there is an interplay there, and
Right.
both are important.
Yeah, awesome. And is there a part of your style that helps your confidence, or like now, or and maybe talk about how that's evolved as well?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah, throughout the years.
Yeah, so if we go back 15 years, I was on mat leave with my first child, and there was and for lots of people who don't necessarily recall that, but there was a huge upheaval in the fishing industry on PEI, and there were herring seiners who were fishing off the coast of eastern PEI, and there was a real threat that these offshore, these big fishing boats were going to damage the stocks for herring, and that was going to affect the inshore fishery.
Right.
And so it was over a series of years, and there was protesters, and there was riot police on the wharf, and it was a really big deal in my community.
Right.
And so at one point I was on mat leave, and my dad kept saying, like, somebody's got to do something. Finally I was like, oh, I guess that's me. I wonder what I'll do. And so I came together with 4 women, 3 other women in our community, and we created an organization called Women for Environmental Sustainability. And we organized sort of rallies and protests, and very quickly inserted ourselves into the management of the fishery at the Southern Gulf level. And so what that meant was going to meetings Southern Gulf of St. Lawrence, which is Nova Scotia, New Brunswick, PEI, Quebec, and Newfoundland.
Okay.
So government, inshore, fishers, so those on our side, the seiners who were not on our side.
Right.
So we ended up going to these meetings, and 60, 70, 80 men, most of whom didn't like us, and very few women in those rooms. So the first time I went to one of those meetings, I needed clothes because I was on mat leave.
Right.
And so I went and bought, I don't even remember what the clothes were, but what I do remember were the boots. So I went to Aldo and found a pair of kitten heel, soft, creamy leather, pointy toe, because it was the early 2000s.
Love it.
Boots. And those were my power boots. So I didn't know what I was doing. I knew I was on the right side of this fight,
right.
activism. And those boots, when I put them on, that's what gave me confidence. And it gave me the confidence to go into these rooms and speak truth to power and be confident that I was there representing, with the voice of women whose voices were not heard in the management of the fishery. I was there speaking on behalf of the herring who didn't have a voice.
Yeah.
And the boots played a huge role in that.
Unreal.
That was fun.
All hail the white boot.
All hail the white boot.
Yes.
And then the pink, the pink blazer. So that was 15 years ago. And a couple of years ago, I was asked I had a contract with Invest Ottawa, which is kind of like the startup zone here. It's
right.
bigger.
Yeah.
And so they had asked me if I would help them develop a roadmap to, improve gender equality in their organization. So the result was gender diversity and inclusion guidelines for their organization.
Right.
And all kinds of really amazing things have happened as a result of that work. The first time I was going to Ottawa to meet with the steering committee for that project, I was getting on the plane, and I started looking at who are the people in the room. And so one of the women that was going to be on the steering committee, her name's, she was at that same time, 15 years ago, when I was the board chair for Women's Network PEI, in that she was the Director General for Status of Women Canada.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so I sort of had a moment of like, oh dear God, I've got some imposter syndrome going on here. What am I going to, what am I going to do?
Right.
And so I got off the plane. My best friend lives in Ottawa. I got off the plane. I was like, I need to go shopping. And so I went to Laura, which I just know has great clothes for someone my shape and size. So I went to Laura, bought myself a fantastic pink blazer and a shirt and a necklace. And that was sort of that extra boost of confidence that I needed to go in that room. So I think, there are those times when we absolutely need that.
Right.
That, it's just sort of that unearthing of the confidence that we have inside.
Love it. The white boots and the pink coat.
Right?
And then on a day-to-day basis, I mean, you have very amazing glasses.
Yes.
You can see them. They're pink. How long have you been wearing pink tinted?
Long time.
Have you?
Yeah. So
that's like part of your signature. I mean,
Absolutely.
it is. It's your signature look.
Yeah, it is. And people talk, it is something that people comment about all the time, quite often actually, and it really is part of my style.
Right.
And And I do, you know, it's interesting, even that color pink, right? Because color pink, for a long time, I used to say that the breast cancer people stole pink.
Right.
Because
right.
everything that was pink was associated with breast cancer, which is totally fine. And so for a long time, there was sort of that piece. There was also, you know, pink is such a feminine color, and, you know, as a feminist, what am I rejecting? What am I keeping? You know, what is like imposed upon me, and what am I choosing myself?
Right.
You know, all of these sorts of things. And really what I came to is I love pink. It looks good on me. I love my pink glasses. I love literally looking at the world through rose-colored glasses. And so now I really embrace that, as it is part of my style. And you know, my brand for my business is very pink, and I love it.
Right on.
It's taken some time.
I love pink too. I always have.
Yeah.
I mean, I love color in general, but I do think people are drawn to, I mean, you say like, what is your favorite color? And I do think for a lot of people it is a big part of their personal style.
Yeah.
You know, you can find comfort in it, find joy in it. So yeah, I love too that you are actually looking through rose-colored glasses all the time.
Yeah.
What do you see with women's empowerment in your industry, in your sector?
So in this summertime, so much of what we talk about around confidence and, you know, women in business, and what is the confidence to get to that next level, and we talk about imposter syndrome and all these sorts of things, and, you know, I really struggle with that a bit, because I feel like I'm a really confident person, and yet I now think about it as I'm really confident except when I'm not.
Right.
So, you know, we all...
I feel that. No,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody could be 100% confident
No.
100% of the time. I mean,
because if you are, you're not putting yourself outside your comfort zone.
exactly.
You're
Yes.
not doing those things that stretch you and stretch your business, stretch
Yes.
your life. And so to me, when I think about confidence or empowerment in my sector, it is about action. So the antidote to a lack of confidence is action. And if we
Yeah.
can do that in a playful kind of way, so if we can look at our business in particular, because that's where so much of our, you know, whatever that thing is that you have to do today that you think, geez, I don't know if I can do that. The reality is the only way you're going to build your confidence is if you just do the damn thing.
Yeah.
And so, like, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Generally, for all of us in our business, it's not death.
Right.
And so, you know, what's the worst thing that's going to happen? Someone's going to say no. Someone's going to reject you. And if we can just flip that around to be like, great, so now I know something that I didn't know before.
Right.
And now I know that, I don't know. Anyway.
And getting, I like following on that point, when you get to the other side many times, and you're like, oh, that, I mean, sure, like there was, you know, could be anxiety and pressure and all the feelings before, but you get to the other side and you're like, oh, hey, that wasn't so bad.
It wasn't so bad.
Right.
And you know what? The crazy thing is, people say yes.
Yeah, you're right.
People, I mean, and Breakthrough is a really great example of that. You just ask,
Yeah.
and it's amazing what happens. You know, I asked you and you said yes. I ask all of these women and they say yes.
Yeah.
And no one's going to say yes if you don't ask them. Julie Campbell's not going to call me up and go, hey, I thought that, you know, if you wanted to create a radio show, I'd love to be on it, right?
Yeah.
So I think to me that is the action builds confidence in a way that nothing else does.
Right. And I mean, you obviously see it in your business strategy business too. Like, and you talked about it before. Action is where it's at.
It is.
Right? Like, you can have the plan, you can have all the motivation, you can have, but if you're not acting, then then you're standing still.
And the reality is, I mean, I'm a strategist. I created this training that I've done live, and I now have it on my website, called 90 for 90, and it's 90 minutes to plan the next 90 days in your business. So the reality is, you can create your and in 90 minutes we walk through what's your strategy, what's your plan for your business for the next 90 days. So the fact of the matter is, you can do that in an hour and a half. The real work is in the action. The real work is in the execution.
Right.
And so that's where the focus really needs to be, is, and it's extraordinary what can happen. It's extraordinary. You know, I just think things like, and what are the strategies that you need in order to build your confidence if you don't have it? So again, back to the boots, back to that jacket. I needed that external totem of confidence when I didn't necessarily feel it fully on the inside.
Right.
And so when I first started, I spent most of my career in the not-for-profit sector.
Right.
So actually selling things was not part of my worldview. And I didn't know how to do it, and I was terrified. And I had all of these really negative messages running through my head about sales and salespeople and schmarmy and sleazy, and asking people for money was gross. And yet, that's a pretty key component to running your own business.
Absolutely.
Is getting people to buy your products or your services. So I took some training because I truly didn't know what I was doing. I took some training that was extraordinary, and then I created an alter ego. And so that alter ego helped when Sarah Roach Lewis did not have the confidence to sell stuff in her business, I created an alter ego that did have the confidence to do that. So then if I got a no, it wasn't me, it was Sandy, who is based on my uncle Sandy, who, if anybody, he's been retired for probably 10 years now, but he was the buyer for electronics for Walmart for, maybe 10 years. He spent 30 years in sales and sold $750 million worth of electronics in his career.
Wow.
So I just strapped on Sandy, and Sandy helped me through that. And I don't need that anymore, but I think that is that action that comes with the building, is, you know what, just because you're terrified to do something, figure out the ways to make it just a little less terrifying. Right.
And accessible to you. And it's funny that you say that you don't need Sandy anymore, and I think also what happens is that you meet in in the middle somewhere.
Yes. Exactly.
Which is super cool. A lot of performers, because I mean,
Absolutely.
selling is in very many ways a performance.
Absolutely.
So it's getting the confidence to do that for sure. Last question, Sarah, what do you love about yourself?
Such a great question.
Isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Mm-hmm.
So I love my optimism, and I love that. I think kind of my superpower is my ability to see in other people what maybe they don't see in themselves, and help them develop the skills and strategies to pull that out.
Excellent.
Yeah, so whether it was, I spent a lot of years on the front lines working with vulnerable women, and having the ability to walk beside someone as they are making transformative change in their life is a really amazing thing. And so that's one of the things that I do love is that, and I love my humor, my lightness, and I also really like my green eyes, which you don't always see because I wear pink glasses all the time.
Nice. Well, thank you so much for joining. And thanks so much for coming in and chatting. I really appreciate it. And let the audience know where they can find you.
Sure. So you can find me on Facebook, and it's just Sarah Roach Lewis. I hang out on LinkedIn a lot. I'm on Instagram, but I mostly just lurk and see what you're doing. And then my website is srl.solutions, and you can find me there too. Thank you so much. This is fun.
Oh my gosh, love it. Thanks so much, everyone. Take care. Bye-bye.